Hello, my fellow witches, sorcerers, and other magical practitioners. My name is Aiden, and welcome back to the Sky Snake Sorcery podcast. It has been quite a while since the last upload, and I don't really have much to say other than it's been a time. I have had quite the time between the last recording and this recording, and it's just been a bit all over the place. So I thank you all for being patient with me, and I look forward to presenting this new episode finally after quite some time, after fighting with the script for a while and finally just saying, you know what, let's make it, let's record it, let's see what happens, what goes. So I want to introduce you all to the quite belated Statues in Sorcery episode. This episode is going to discuss all kinds of sorcery you can do with statues, the magic of arming them, of empowering them, washing them, as well as getting a bit into why do we even use statues? Like, as humans, why do we have statues in the first place? And I think ultimately, in terms of spirit statues, they are representations of the divine. They are a face to the faceless. We've used statues to represent the divine, semi-divine, heroic, mythic, all kinds of figures and forces for countless aeons. We have ancient figures depicting strange human-animal hybrids. We have all these figurines and votive statues from the earliest civilizations that more than likely depict the gods or ancestors. So why did they do this? And why do we keep up this tradition to this day? I think arguably it all comes down to being able to see, to interface, to touch spirits in a very tangible way. And I think that translates very well over into the way we use them in magic. Before we get into all of that, I want to do a quick little bit of housekeeping, self-promo. My books are open for divination only right now. I do geomancy, Lenormand. I do spiritual framework readings where I will look at you and your spirit court and get into all the details of them, any spirits that are coming forward, as well as do an additional reading on the way that you personally practice sorcery. I have a handful of oils for love, success, and money up on my website as well. And spellwork is closed for now. I'm keeping that closed probably all the way through the end of the year, with some special exceptions made. With that all being said, let's get into a brief overview of the history of statues, why we even use them, and what is the point of a statue. Statues have been found of many mysterious icons as well as very familiar ones throughout all of the centuries. We have images of people, animals, deities, as well as less representational figures. As previously mentioned, we of course have the very famous images of the half-human, half-animal hybrids found all throughout the world. I think specifically about the Lion Man figure, as I've actually seen this in person, and it really harkens into my mind a lot of the totemic images of the Neolithic era. It makes me think about why would they have done this. There's a lot of retroactive postulating about Neolithic people and what they thought, how they used these things. And of course, it is more than likely a animistic image for some sort of ritual practice, usually what now gets dubbed shamanism, though that term is again retroactive and has some cultural distinctions that don't always get discussed. The Lion Man figure, as well as many other animalistic figures, humanoid and less humanoid, to me they really evoke our ability to create the unreal within the real, to take the other world's reality and make it into our own. And I think that bridge is essential to why we like statues. We like being able to create something that is unreal and turn it into what is real. We like to make it tangible, physical, able to be engaged with. We do have this, of course, with two-dimensional art, and icons are something I'm going to talk about here and there throughout. But the statue, or rather the 3D object that is representational of the deity, of the spirit, of whatever it may be, is ultimately much more tangible, easier to connect with, as well as manipulate. All over the world, we find two primary forms of statues, iconic and aniconic, being direct representation versus indirect and non-specific representation. Iconic statues would be, for example, a statue of Aphrodite as a beautiful woman with doves rising out of the ocean on a seashell. That is very iconic. It is very direct. It is both representing the deity in a embodied form, as well as having animalistic forms and taking on a larger mythic aspect. Whereas the meteorite that is Aphrodite in Cyprus is aniconic. While this is not a carved statue, it is worked with and engaged with similar to how statues would have been engaged with in ancient times. Another great example from Greece would be Hermes, which are representations of Hermes. These are usually posts, sometimes adorned with a phallus, and sometimes having other imagery attached to it, but primarily they are posts at the side of roads, at crossroads, denoting boundaries. This is a representation of Hermes that is strongly contrasted with a nude youth, usually having shepherd-like qualities to him. That is much more recognizable as Hermes, therefore it is iconic. The cross is also a very interesting piece of aniconic image. It is quite literally the most iconic aniconic image. The cross does not represent Jesus as he appears, but rather is a symbol representing Jesus, especially if we go with the cross is just a little lowercase t. I tend to use iconic images for the most part in my practices. However, I would argue that sigils are a modern form of aniconic images. The sigil is representational of something, whether that be the intent, the goal, or of the spirit's body. But sigils themselves are generally not going to be directly depicting the spirit, right? When you draw a spirit sigil or when you look at a spirit sigil in a book, they tend not to be directly representational. You might find images and meaning in them by looking closer at them. Of course, a bit of scrying has helped with this. However, they themselves are not intended to be a direct representation of the spirit. And be sure to check out my sigil episode, which was a couple episodes ago. Be sure to take a look at that. In the creation and construction of statues, I find that the different materials used also play quite an important function in them and have their own meanings that I think can be important in deciding how you're going to construct your own statues if you choose to go that route. Bones, wood, stone, marble, metal, clay, and many more are all used to make statues. Those are the primary ones I'm going to be talking about here. But I think that, again, each has their own virtues as well as have their own upsides and downsides that can benefit the way that you create your statues. Bones, of course, have ties to the actual animal they're taken from. So if you were to carve something out of a chicken bone, it would have the qualities of the chicken, which can be very helpful if you're making something like a solar statue, because a chicken is a very solar animal. Of course, bone is very hard to carve, it can be very brittle, and it can break easily. But it does have its own merits for its connection to the animal, or of course the person that you're taking it from if you are carving something out of a person's bone. Holy trees are good for creating statues, especially for statues that you intend to burn in sacrifice. They again are not super durable material, especially depending on the type of wood, and they can have quite a bit of wear and tear. However, I do particularly like them in the instance of creating effigies meant to be sacrificed. The same goes for things like corn dollies, which can be created at certain times of the year and dedicated to certain deities, who are then at the end of the year burned in sacrifice, and that ash is then kept and put into the next statue over and over and over again. Stone is a long-lasting material and can also be painted. Bones and trees can also be painted. However, stone has a certain quality to it of longevity, of standing for quite a long time, though it is again a much harder material to carve. Marble has this ethereal quality to it, and again, all those statues in ancient Greece were painted. We don't think about them that much this day, but that paint obviously doesn't last forever. Marble does tend to last throughout the ages, and I think that quality of everlastingness is very important, especially when you're trying to capture the eternal grace, power, and majesty of a hero or a deity. Marble is a lot harder to create as well as source. Metals tied to the sphere of the deity are great, such as creating something out of gold for Helios, or that sort of rosy gold, or even just coating a statue in gold for Helios. Other metals, of course, can be used, such as tin for Jupiter. Be careful with lead for Saturn, of course. Copper for Venus is great, iron for Mars, and so on and so forth. Clay is probably the easiest to use, it lasts well, and can be mixed with other elements such as dirts, herbs, and waters. I like clay a lot for statue making because, again, they can be loaded with all kinds of different materia, and I think that that lends itself very well to the types of statues I like to work with. All of these examples have been used throughout the centuries, throughout the aeons. Obviously, clay and bone being very early materials, moving into trees, stone, marble, and metal. I would love to one day be able to just create statues of all different kinds out of all this different type of material, but it does take quite a bit of skill to do some of these, and my clay statues still have quite a long ways to go before I'm satisfied with them. But the important thing is, whether you're making the statue or not, is that you are putting forth the effort to engage with the spirit that the statue is representing, that the statue becomes more than just an art piece, and that you are engaging with the art as more than just a pretty picture, but something that ties back into a larger mystery, which I think is what the whole point of statues are. Statues play a very important role for devotees of different spirits to have a physical focal point and connection to the object of worship. While the deity is not inherently itself the statue serves as a point of reference for the deity. It serves as a way for the deity and the person to connect in the physical world. Statues in that way are a type of crossroads. They allow us to meet halfway, so the deity doesn't have to come forward and manifest so strongly, but can rather manifest in the face of the statue. You can give them petitions, you can pray to them, you can touch various parts of them, you can rub various items along the statue. Many celebrations work this way, where the statue of the saint, the deity, whatever it may be, is presented, honored, fed, given offerings to, prayed over, and then people can go and touch the statue, especially miraculous statues or reliquary items, where they have been empowered by the virtue of a miracle, whether that miracle happened or not. Many statues contain images and icons also tied into aspects and acts of the spirit, so obviously this is very helpful for a magic to have a specific function for the statue or the spirit. If you're searching out specific things like a statue for domination and you look for images of saints, of deities that are in their more warlike, in their more domineering, or even their more seductive aspects, this will be helpful for you to use, as that imagery is already readily available to you. Culturally, these images also share a story of the spirit and the people, and creates the myth and narrative for you, so you're able to immediately connect back into it. You see a specific image of a Mary, of a Marian devotion, and you're immediately reminded of that devotion, and usually in the image, certain things are used to cue you into what you're supposed to be meditating on, what you're supposed to be thinking about, what you're supposed to be drawing your attention towards, as a lot of saintly images are intended to be used more so in a meditative and devotional aspect, way less so in a ritualistic, magical practice. Of course, their intention is not always what is used. Statues also just carry stories in them. I think a lot about the various statues that I have encountered in my life, the way that people have worked them, have prayed to them, have created them, or have just had them passed down in their family for generations. Statues carry memories because the physical item is able to take on the aspects of the people who held it. And I think that that's a very important thing to keep in mind as well, is that when you buy a new statue, think about how many hands it has passed through. Is it brand new? Is it older? Has someone taken the time to consecrate, to bless it, to empower it? Is this a gift from someone that you care about, or is it just a resin Amazon statue? There's nothing wrong, of course, with the latter, and that can become a very empowered object, but think about the ways that we receive statues and that we bring them into our lives. Naturally, this all leads into the ultimate point of this episode, which is the uses of statues in magic. Statues have all kinds of different ways that they can be worked, ways that they can be manipulated, ways that they can be empowered. So we're going to kind of go through the stages building up from there, starting with the very basic, the very simple, using a statue the way that it came. Plain old, nothing's been done to it, maybe a prayer's been said over it, but besides that, statue is fine. Without doing too much, you can get things done like petitions by placing at the feet of the statues, under the statue, on the statue, in front of them, or just reading it out to them. Statues can serve as a central focus for spells or an operation or doing workings in front of the statue involving the spirit invoked. I generally find that this is what most people are doing. Most people are just praying at the statue, praying at the shrine, using it as a ritual focus. This is generally how statues are used all over the world in most cultures. At most, they might get a blessing from a priest of some kind. For example, a saint statue might be blessed. And then kept in the home. Most people in neo-pagan traditions will put offerings in front of these statues, will use them as a central focal point. I find that this is just very common and very accessible to most people, and probably what comes to mind for the most part for everyone who is first learning about statues in esoteric practices. We also see the use of statues and icons, however, in more interesting ways without, again, further empowerments made to them. For example, bringing them in conjurations, holding up images of a spirit to ward off, to exorcise, saying, this is the saint that is over you, this is the deity that punishes you, leave this place because this deity is here, this saint is here, this spirit is here. We see it used in some conjurations where the statue or icon is set down and the spirits are called under the authority of that deity, of that saint, whatever it may be. Again, not much is actually being done to the statue itself. However, the very presence of the image, again, going back to the sigil and image magic video, not much is being done, but that image holds power and virtue on its own. So the statue as is totally fine to engage with, and will yield great results still. People have been doing this for so long. And again, this is also why I think about, like, what statues are you using? Are you going to the statue of Mary in a 500-year-old cathedral, or are you going to the statue of Mary that you bought off of Etsy? There's a different power in them, and both still connect back into Mary, but it's good to think about what is it that you are going to that statue for, and why is it that you see power in that statue? Next, we're going to talk about consecrating statues and actually empowering them in specific ways. They can be created and empowered for different purposes. A general blessing on a statue to cleanse them and keep them clean is always the best protocol to start out with. A bath of rue, rosemary, and basil is a pretty good step. It will clean the statue out because, again, statues are just vessels. When you're praying to the spirit, when you're praying to the saint, when you're praying to the deity, we are hoping that they are coming through. However, that may not always be the case, and they are, again, empty vessels for anyone or anything to just hop right into. So just a bath of rue, rosemary, and basil to clean the statue out, to prepare it for the spirit who you want to come in to properly come in. In addition, you can do a secondary bath that is more tied into the actual spirit. There's different ways that this can be created, and the spirit should guide you on this if you don't have a specific tradition to go about it through. It can be as simple as something like rose water for Mary, or maybe doing something with crossroads dirt for Hecate, but just rubbing the spirit down in a powder, in a wash, with oils, can help anchor that spirit's presence in after doing this cleansing. Afterwards, just use the statue as is for the depicted spirit. Nothing more has to really be done from there, but it creates a nice, clean, and perfect vessel for them to flow through properly. Moving up from this, though, we can empower a statue for a specific task. We'll discuss even more about this with arming statues, but statues can be made for very specific purposes, such as protection, domination, love, all these different things. And we do this with herbs, washes, fumigations, to draw the spirit's more specific capacities in. A great spirit that you can do this with is Medusa for protection, getting this little statue of Medusa, or an icon, or even the little gorgonions that we find throughout the ancient world, and empowering that, blessing that, washing that for protection, and keeping that in a window. By empowering things for specific purposes, they take on a certain role versus just the general image of the spirit. So while yes, you might have a statue of Mary, you might want to have a more specific statue that is tailored to her more healing aspects, to her more life-giving aspects, to her more blessing aspects, versus a statue that is more focused on pure heavenly devotions. It's important to think about what the statue is being used for, and while you can obviously have a statue that does everything, sometimes having those more specific and tailored statues is helpful. The statues that we have can also work as anchors for the spirits into this world and give them more agency, helping them sort of have a hand in this world versus just being more in the air, being more in the unseen world. You can seat them more in the statue and give them various items to empower them to ensure that they are able to manifest more fully. Of course, again, this gets a bit into arming, which we're gonna get into soon, but I also like to think about what helps the spirit manifest and turning that into a powder or some sort of way to contain it and putting that into the statue, loading the statue with these virtues so that the statue itself is now tied into the deity in the physical world. I think the best way to get a start into this without having any formal training in recipes is to ask the spirit for 3 herbs, a stone, and an animal that they manifest through in the physical world. This can be done in meditation, through automatic writing, whatever way allows this information to be conveyed to you. Once you have these 3 herbs, the stone, and the animal, gather the herbs, turn that into a powder, add the stone in, and if you can't get a part of the animal, then get a charm or some other representation of the animal and keep that all together and put that into the bottom of the statue. This is called loading the statue, and this is a great way to create a very simple but very effective charge for the spirit before you go and create more and more advanced forms, because I think it's good to have a very simple one before you go deeper as you develop your relationship with the spirit and learn more about what they need to be empowered. Plenty of more complex formulas will be revealed over time. 121 herbs, 1,000 different stones, specific animals that have to be obtained in certain ways. All of that will slowly reveal itself over time. But what matters is having one very basic form that the spirit can manifest through. And now you can use those 3 herbs, stone, and animal in any sort of spell work with that spirit to add an extra oomph and punch in their manifestations. For example, you can even take that 3-herb powder and add it to candles that you dress and place before the spirit, so again that they can manifest more strongly. And just as you can empower a statue for the spirit that the statue represents, you can also empower it for other spirits. Sometimes the image of a spirit can be used as a mask for another spirit entirely. Marian statues are often used as masks for goddesses or other figures who are no longer part of the modern dominant religion in a given area. They are used to represent various deities, other spirits, and ancestors, so that they can still manifest properly just under a new face. Plenty of saints are used this way as well. What can also be done is getting a statue that can represent a familiar and putting the familiar into that statue. The statue should be cleansed pretty thoroughly for this, ensuring that any blessing that was on it is scrubbed away, and ideally they should come unconsecrated and not have any ties to anything unless that is what you want to have for the specific virtue of the spirit you're trying to put in instead of the representation. The statue is loaded and blessed accordingly. Again, ask for those 3 herbs, stone, and animal, or anything else that you need to create that charge that you then put into the statue. It's also great if you need to practice covertly, or if your spirit just wants to remain hidden to their true natures for whatever reason that might be. If you're living in a household that is very Catholic and accepts saint statues, bless and consecrate the saint statue for the deity that you're trying to worship. Next up is arming our statues. Arming the statues is very helpful to, again, give them more hands in this world, but also give them very specific tools that they can now work with and use. This is great, especially for familiars, because familiars oftentimes might need a little extra boost. It's great for saints and deities as well, of course. Once a statue's been worked long enough and you secure the bond between you and that statue, and you know how that spirit manifests through them, that's the time that you can start thinking about giving them tools. Oftentimes, tools will appear in the folklore of the spirit, and you might also get them in dreams or visions, or even just like you might get a sense of, I want this tool. Bring this tool to me. Give me this so I can use it. And different tools can be applied in different ways. And sometimes they take on very small forms, like a spirit might ask for a sword, and you find a milagro of a little sword, and you put that on the statue, and they're like, oh, perfect, I have a sword now. Other times they actually want a sword. that in itself can become a vessel for other spirits to access, such as subordinate spirits. You might have a nymph of Hecate that wants to manifest in the form of a necklace that you put around Hecate's statue. The Hecate specifically asks is empowered and is put on her statue so she can access the nymph more easily, and the nymph can access Hecate's statue more easily. And this all works to bring forth their power in the physical world. Some small examples that you can easily apply right now is you can make a key for Hecate to open your roads. A really simple way to do this is to take a key, bury at the crossroads for 9 nights, going to the crossroads every single night, watering it with various waters, liquors, and praying over it, and then unburying it on the 9th night, which should be a new or full moon, taking it and giving it some fumigations and giving that key to her, saying, "Let this key open all my roads in my life." Then you can take that key when you're doing work with Hecate off of her statue and putting it into any road opener works, setting it in front of locks so that they open, things like that. A very classic example is Santa Muerte's scythe. Most statues come with a detachable scythe that is then used in various works. Usually you don't even need to empower it that much, as it is already tied into the statue and her whole mode of working. You can take the scythe and you can scratch yourself down to cleanse yourself. You can cross enemies with it. You can remove illnesses off of people who need it. You can use it to cut away cross conditions, unblock roads, things like that. Another example is you might want to create a dagger for a martial familiar so that they can use that to protect you better. You might wash it in their herbs, fumigate it in dragon's blood, and call upon the primary spirit that presides over that familiar to further empower it, marking it up with sigils. And then you might place that in front of the familiar's altar or shrine or other dedicated space. Additional empowerments can also be given to a statue through waters, oils, and powders added to it. For example, if you wanted to create a more dominating statue for any given spirit, you might create a domination oil and then anoint that on the various parts of them, such as their face, their hands, their feet, and so forth. You might want to create a more fearsome aspect, so you get a very fiery, very dominating, but in a more aggressive sense, in a more fiery and angry sense. And you might create an oil or a wash out of that and wash the statue down with that. Clothing is also often given to statues. We see this usually as gifts to honor them on their feast days or for coming through with a very powerful answer to your petition. And these clothes can be decorated in various different ways. Oftentimes I see capes for Saint Expedite that you can then make longer and longer over the years. You can sew things into them. You can create clothes for the Divino Niño de Praga, and you can give him all kinds of little gifts, jewelry, and so forth. Pentacles, talismans, and charms are also great to give to spirits. If you need your spirit to manifest more, give them the 4th pentacle of the sun. If you need a spirit to bring in more wealth, give them the 2nd pentacle of Jupiter. If you need a spirit to be more domineering, give them the 2nd pentacle of Saturn. All these different things are great to give to your spirits. Give them charm bags. Give them milagros. Give them tetragrammaton charms, give them all kinds of talismans so that they can use them to benefit you. I like to give rosaries and chaplets as well to certain spirits. Of course, my Marys all have different rosaries that they use. They have chaplets for other saints that I pray to through them. And these are also very just very helpful so that these spirits again have access and can pray along with you. I want to briefly touch on feeding spirits. I want to do a whole episode on this topic eventually. But I want to briefly touch on the importance of feeding the spirit in the statue and how you might go about doing that. To feed the spirit, you want to present the offerings to them. So you would touch the food, the drink, whatever it may be, directly to the statue. You can either do this by taking your 2 fingers and dipping it into the water, touching that to their face, and then holding up some of the meal to them, giving them a fork to eat with. You can also just touch the drink, the glass, whatever it might be, to the spirit, and you can also touch the plate to the spirit and put the fork in their hands. Whatever it may be, I find that the direct contact is very helpful. It's very important, and it helps build good rapport with the spirits. This is also just a good time to sit and commune with the spirit, make some banquet for them, sit, talk, have your own plate that you eat with them. It allows you to grow more communally with them. Eating is a very communal thing in human societies and cultures, and bringing them into your living space, bringing them into your lived life, can help build more of that rapport and strengthen your overall bond with them. There's also, of course, doctoring the food that you give them, meaning you can give certain spirits certain things so that they react in a certain way. Feeding sweet foods to sweeten them, such as candies, honey, cake, very thick, rich things can help slow them down but still bring in a sweetness. Whereas you might want to create a very hot platter if you want something done fast, if you want something done with a lot of anger, a lot of heat, just to get it going and done. Or you might want to bring something very cool, very starchy to calm the spirit down so that they can actually hear you and get the work done properly. This can be used to strengthen them as well, as you might want to give these spirits very hearty foods, very what we use for bodybuilding foods, to again make their physical body a bit more easy to manifest. Now that we've gone over all these different things with statues, I want to give some very specific workings that you can do with all this knowledge and hopefully apply them in your own life and practice. I would love to see what people do with these. First and foremost, protection workings. Protection is something that we all need in one level or another, and this is a great way to create a strong home protection statue. First, you're going to select a statue of whatever protector spirit you want to use and cleanse it as I previously mentioned, adding in your own stuff if you desire. Then you want to get a terracotta saucer large enough to fit the statue and draw in chalk or paint a protective sigil that you've agreed to work with your spirit through. Create a sigil by whatever means you want or receive the sigil. However you obtain it, make sure that it is one that your spirit has agreed to work through. You're going to cover the sigil with dirt from the four corners of your house, what your personal places of safety and protection are. This, for some people, very traditionally is a police station, a fire station, and a hospital. Some people will use other things, like you might choose your school. If you went to a certain school that felt very safe for you, you could get it from the dirt in a plant in a safe space. You can get it from a shelter. You can get it from wherever you personally find and draw your own safety, as well as adding in your own protective herbs. My 3 protection herbs are rue, rosemary, and clove. I put that in all my protective blends. If you have different protection herbs, use those ones, or use whatever you feel drawn to. The key thing is creating a protective layer. On that blend, you will set the statue, and you'll add sword charms, arrowheads, or something else in the 8 directions of the statues. These can all be washed and empowered as well. You can create a really strong protection charm out of each of these on their own and then add that in, or you can just keep them as they are, as they will overall be empowered together. But you want to have 8 of these so that they protect the 8 directions: north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. Having all of these places guarded and defended so that whatever comes in from whatever direction, you are safe. Anoint the head, hands, heart, and feet, as well as any other locations that you feel a call to with protection oil. You can also add in other things, like if you want this to be more of a aggressive protection, make that oil more aggressive. If you want this to be more of an ambient protection, make that more ambient. If you have specific spirits to ward against, like the dead, for example, add in something like that. If you want them to have more command over demonic spirits, you might want to add in the 5th pentacle of Mars to your oil, or even just create that powder and rub that down on them. Anything that you feel the need to add it. Do that right now. Then light 4 white candles. You can use a tea light before, behind, right, and left of the statue. Light those, call the spirit down, and pray for them to come and inhabit the statue. One thing I like to do as a test of if the spirit is present is I will ask them to push back on my hands, and I will try and get my hands as close to the statue as possible. But if I feel pushback, like I can't fully just touch the statue without any resistance, then that means the spirit is present. You can do further divination with cards, with geomancy, whatever it may be, to determine if the spirit truly is residing in there. And then from there, just give offerings to it, pray to that spirit, Be sure to feed them. Whenever you feel the need for stronger protection, give them the necessary meals, empower them, add things like a dagger, more charms, more talismans, more protections if you need. Add whatever you feel is necessary that will keep you protected against all odds. Keep this statue near the front door. You might want to hide it a little bit or keep it in your room, somewhere that you need the most protection in, and the spirit will be quick enough to act. Next up is a domination working. This working can be adjusted for any type of domination, but I'm using this more so in the sense of you need someone to stop what they are doing or start doing something they're supposed to be doing. The statue should already be dedicated to a specific spirit and operational. You should have a statue prepared already that you can just go to that spirit. For me, that would be Hecate. Mark up the photo or name paper of the target and add your domination oil. Do whatever you normally would do for working like that. Then you're going to coat some black yarn with domination oil and powders, praying over it that these become chains and a rope that will bind and detain your enemy so that they cannot harm you, they cannot continue to do what they are doing, and that they must obey what the spell is telling them to do. Then you're going to get a black cloth and coat it in the ash of invisibility talismans, sigils, pentacles, whatever it may be. Get the ash of that and rub it all down into that cloth. And then you're going to fumigate that with myrrh. Again, pray over it for invisibility, to give your spirit invisibility, that they might not be seen, and that this domination work is not seen by the target who is being affected. Put honey into a small dish and prepare the food accordingly. Whatever gets your spirit up and ready to work, depending on what this type of domination is, you might want something more starchy versus something more hot or something a bit more sweet. Again, you can even doctor the honey itself, adding in chili powder to heat up the honey even more. Honey is a hot material, so be careful with this, but if you need it to be spicier, go for it. Arm the statue by putting the cloak around it, the cloak of invisibility, saying, I give you this cloak of invisibility. I arm you with this shroud of darkness that you may not be seen, that this work may not be seen, that I may not be seen. I give you this rope to become chains, to use to bind my enemy, to ensure that they cannot act against me, and that they must obey what the spell is telling them to do. Give them the honey so that they have a sweet enough mouth that when these commands are given, the person responds and feels that it is necessary to listen to these commands. And then feed the statue whatever else is necessary, set the target under the statue, and burn candles over this and pray. Do this for at least 9 days with black or purple candles, and you should see some pretty good results. Again, doctor anything as you need, add more, take away anything you feel is unnecessary, and work this in whatever way you want. Again, this is more of a dominating someone who needs to do the right thing or is actively blocking your success versus a love domination. But we will talk about love in just a little bit. But first, abundance. This one's going to be a specific creation of a statue of Fortuna. So first get a statue of her and cleanse it appropriately with the fumigations and the baths from before. In a prominent space of the home, such as the kitchen or some elevated shelf in the living room, set up a bowl of herbs, grains, and other prosperity drawing materia that draws in money, stabilizes and keeps wealth, as well as boosting abundance, your fortunes, and all of that wonderful stuff. This for me would be rice, lentils, basil, bay leaf, nutmeg, gum arabic. All these things help stabilize and draw in wealth for me. You're going to fumigate the statue with a mixture of bay leaf, cinnamon, frankincense, lemongrass, and basil, or whatever other prosperity blend you feel called to give to her. Then you're going to say a prayer to her. The Orphic hymn is great for this. And you're going to give her a wash in prosperity herbs and anoint her in olive oil. As you anoint her in olive oil, you're going to pray that she is sealed into the statue. Again, test this. And if she isn't there, if she's not present yet, repeat, pray the Orphic hymn, call her down, draw her presence in so that she might reside in the statue. Then you're going to set her in the bowl and give her the second pentacle of Jupiter around her neck, or a different appropriate talisman. Tell her that she is going to use this and the bowl that she is sitting in to draw prosperity into you so that you are always overflowing with wealth. Offer to this statue and feed it regularly. I recommend once a month, perhaps on a Thursday, giving offerings to both her and the spirits that are now surrounding her in this bowl. You can add into it various coins, you can turn it into a money pot, whatever works best for you. Our last spell of the night is going to be a love spell with a statue. Again, the statue to spirit should already be prepared. This is taken from a couple of methods that I have done before, and I worked primarily through Our Lady of Guadalupe. However, you can do this through spirits like Aphrodite or any other love deity of your choice. It doesn't even have to be a love deity. But once the statue to spirit is prepared, burn a love incense. This can be rose, hibiscus. This can be whatever evokes love for you. And light some red candles. Play some love music, some romantic music, whatever evokes the type of love you're trying to draw out of this person. Touch a picture of yourself to the right hand of the spirit and the desired person to the left hand and say, I place names into your hands. I place Aiden Blackheart into your hand. I place Joseph Smith into your hands, whatever it may be. Take a red thread and cover it in love oils, powders, herbs. Add a little bit of your own spit, whatever gets this working for you, and place it in the hands of the spirit, saying, use the red threads of love to bind Aiden Blackheart and Joseph Smith together. Pray as the spirit as you wrap the pictures together. I, Aphrodite, bind Joseph Smith and Aiden Blackheart together with this red thread of love. I bind these two as a divine emanation of love, as the secret name of Aphrodite. I bind these two as one. Set the combined pictures at the feet of the statue and burn candles daily, drawing the lover in by the hands of the spirit, saying, I place these at your feet. These two are together at your feet, and by your will, they must come together. Fumigate it. Touch honey, touch oils to it. Just keep working it over and over until that person is finally drawn in. I know I went really fast in this episode and that there was a lot of information just kind of dumped on you, but I hope this episode is very informative and I hope that you were able to gain some new insights into the way that statues can be used. I think that statues have a really important part in our practice and I think they often do get underutilized. So I hope that these very adaptable tools become more usable for you and you find more and more creative ways to help your spirits manifest through them. Please feel free to try out any and all of these methods. Let me know how they work for you. And just experiment. As always, experiment with everything I give in any of these episodes. Try them out. If something doesn't work, try a different way. See what you can get to work for you. And with that being said, our sacred statuary songs for this week, that is our music segment of this episode, is Ostia, The Death of Pasolini by Coil, and Ave Maria, Remasterizado by Los Nani. Ostia I listened to on loop when I was preparing for a very important statue consecration. It was actually of a very particular type of statue that is somewhere between aniconic and iconic. It is representative of the spirit, but it was more of an item of the spirit rather than a fully fleshed out image of them. The Ave Maria I have used for consecrating Marian statues, of course, and I find that this version in particular works really well for me. So I hope that you take a listen to them, that you find your own songs that work well for you, and with all that being said, see you all hopefully very soon. So mote it be.